Victory belongs to Italy this week as Piergiorgio Bucci and Hantano took the win at the World Cup in Madrid. The class played out as to be expected from the mixed starting order as the cream rose to the top. But it was Maikel, Vleuten and Beauville who stole the show as they completed their 100th meter 60 round together. Welcome to Horse Bytes, your 5 and 10 5-star show jumping, all in just 10 minutes. We headed back into Western European World Cup jumping this week as the only 5-star took place in Madrid. The usual suspects were in contention for the title, but Piergiorgio Bucci and Hantano took the first ever win for Italy as only the third European nation to ever win the Grand Prix. With only €175,000 up for grabs, it was nowhere near the type of prize money we've been seeing, and it certainly paled in comparison to the money we can only assume changed hands with some of the biggest news of the week as Victor Bettendorf's fantastic 9-year-old Foxy de la Roque will now be seen under America's Carl Cook. Between Foxy, Caracol, and Kalinka, it's safe to say that Mr. Cook has perhaps the strongest string of horses I can remember any one rider having at a single moment. It's sure to be an exciting few years, but luckily, we will get to see Victor compete Foxy one last time in Geneva before their partnership ends. A rare thing these days, as possession usually takes place before any kind of acquisition announcement. I'm sure it will be bittersweet, but we are rooting for one last win for the pair. And speaking of wonderful partnerships, we saw two-time individual Olympic bronze medalists Maikel van der Vleuten and Beauville Z jump their 100th meter 60 round together and record their 58th clear. Now that is an insane feat given the fact that most Grand Prix horses jump on average 12 to 15 classes a year at meter 60, which would be approximately 20 rounds total including jump-offs or so. And knowing most top-level horses usually don't make it more than 5 years at the highest level, that basically means Beauville not only has longevity in our sport, and he's only 14, but with a 58% clear rate, his stats are almost as good as they get in our sport. But back to the action. The Madrid World Cup track was set by Spain's Javier Trenor in what many riders called a difficult ring. With slightly rounded off corners, it made turns a bit tricky as a number of riders got caught out on either too many or too few strides. The late Liverpool double was very spooky and rode really long and caused more than a few problems as a lot of horses stumbled or almost fell through it. The second jump, which was a plain red vertical, also fell 15% of the time. Overall, however, it was perhaps too easy of a first round as we eventually saw 13 make it into the jump-off. The first round was relatively short with only a 69-second time allowed. We usually never see times under the 72-second mark, and with a lot of early clears from the strongest riders, it certainly wasn't the most challenging track we've seen recently. Most of the major contenders popped around like it was nothing, with only Simone Delestre, Daniel Deusser, and Marlon Modolo Zanatelli racking up some faults, keeping them out of the jump-off. Even though the time was generous, Peter DeVos and his developing 9-year-old Primo DV and Cian O'Connor and his really nice-looking new partnership of Bentley de Surrey were slightly over the time allowed, each picking up a single fault. I told you Cian was a bit of a slowpoke. Otherwise, the 13 horse-rider combinations made for what should have been an exciting jump-off. However, it wasn't amazing, and we saw the first 5 knockdown poles, especially the FEI vertical on the turn. The jump-off was actually quite long comparatively to the short first round, and many ended up riding it like a second round versus a speedy jump-off. Julien Bayard was first to go and had the fastest time of the class, but wasn't able to leave the fences intact. And as he mentioned in an interview before the jump-off, with so many in it, rails can get very expensive, and he assumed people would play it a bit safe in hopes of earning valuable World Cup points. First to eventually go clear and make it over the Longines FEI vertical and A of the double, which was tricky, was Marcus Enning and DPS Revere, who would eventually finish in 4th. Max Kuhner also jumped double clear, but was the slowest of the 5 and finished in 5th. Next up was Maikel and Beauville, who were smooth as butter, albeit a bit off the pace, and would eventually finish in 3rd. Next in was PG and Hantano, who made up time early by doing 8 from 1 to 2 and 10 from 2 to 3. With efficient turns and never really slowing up, his time would eventually hold up for the win. Mikey Pender gave it a good go, but with cross-cantering around some wider turns that he made, he eventually finished half a second behind in silver position. All in, the class was average. Some nice show jumping and an unexpected winner, which helped keep things interesting. Always nice to see a different horse rider in the winner's circle. I'd give the class a 5.5 out of 10. Not bad, but nothing to write home about. I am excited, however, for next week's MLSJ Individual Final in Thermal, where another $1 million will be up for grabs, with Ireland's Alan Wade building and an additional $100,000 bonus for the top 3. Conor Swail is currently leading the way by a narrow margin of 3 points, with Kent Farrington hot on his heels and Derek Kenny trailing behind. Kent would have to finish in 11th place or better to even have a chance to catch Conor. Make sure to check out the action next week to see who takes home the big bucks. Well, that's a wrap on this week's top highlights, and stay tuned next week for another Spanish World Cup from A Coruña and the MLSJ Individual Final in California. But before you go, check out a young Foxy de la Roca as a 5-year-old before she made her way into the history books.
The horse doesn't have experience, if we're honest. Only jumped 5 meter 60 classes. But won 4 of those 5. That's incredible. What a horse is Foxy de la Roca. Victor Bettendorf to Starasol once again. It's another clear. Oh, this is really a night of champions.
Stay tuned to all of our socials. Make sure to subscribe and follow along all the action as it unfolds here on Horse Bytes, your 5 and 10. 5-star show jumping, all in just 10 minutes.